G'day and welcome back to the channel. My name's Grant Frost and I'm an Australian musculoskeletal physiotherapist. And in today's video, I want to show you 3 exercises you absolutely should be doing to not only help keep you pain-free, but to get out of pain and optimize performance. Clinically, as a physiotherapist, these 3 exercises are exercises that I'm often coming back to for so many people as a way to help improve some of that hidden dysfunction that might be causing their pain or setting them up to be painful over time. So let's get into it. So the very first exercise, and for me, potentially one of the most important exercises that you should be doing, is the couch stretch. The couch stretch is very good at opening the front of your hips and the front of your thighs. These areas can be a hidden source of muscular tightness, often because of the amount of time that we spend sitting throughout our days. And for me, as a physiotherapist, tightness through the front of your hips and down through your thighs is legitimately one of the main hidden causes to lower back dysfunction, hip dysfunction, and knee dysfunction. And thanks to this modern world of ours, if you are someone who does spend a lot of your day sitting, whether that be through work or leisure, then an exercise like the couch stretch, where you're just getting the back of your knee into the corner of a chair or a couch, with your shin vertical and your foot pointed upwards, trying to keep your trunk straight and extending up as far as you feel comfortable through your hips, is an amazing way to find and reduce tightness at the front of this leg. Once you have come up to a point where you find where your tightness is, and you can twist from side to side to see if that gives you access to a better version of your tightness. You want to squeeze your glutes and then tense up that tightness that you found for 5 to 10 seconds. Again, it creates that reflex in your brain that when you stop tensing and the tissue gives, it'll physically release the tightness in that tissue to some degree straight away. You should then be able to go further back into the stretch than what you could before repeating that process of squeezing, tensing your glutes, tensing your thigh. If you need to push your foot back into the surface to make that tightness work, do that. You should instantly feel a sense of mobility through the front of your hips and potentially down through your thigh. And if you find that this becomes a little bit too easy for you, then what you can do instead is you can replace the chair with the floor, get your knee right back into the corner of that wall, and then same thing, coming up as far as you feel comfortable. Please make sure that you just come up to the point at which you feel a comfortable level of tightness. If you can't breathe, if you can't feel relaxed, then it's really hard for your brain and nervous system to feel safe enough to just let go. So you need to find a version that feels very safe and comfortable for you. And following on from this, the second exercise is also highly valuable if you care about how your legs function. This second exercise is potentially crucial at helping you optimize the function of your lower half. And the second exercise is feeling comfortable doing full range deep squats. Being able to perform an optimal version of a squat requires a certain degree of normal flexibility, muscular strength, and control. And while performing any version of a squat has its benefits, being able to express the full depth of that range of motion without losing your foot position, without having your heels come up off the ground, without feeling like your knees cave in, without rounding your back at the bottom or even wanting to fall down. A basic deep squat is not only a normal expression of normal physiology, but being able to express optimal form and control and function with a basic deep squat. This not only translates well to any exercise or activity that requires you to run or jump or twist and move, but understanding what an optimal squat looks and feels like can be a fantastic diagnostic tool if you're dealing with any foot, knee, hip, or lower back dysfunction. Because if you are someone dealing with back or hip dysfunction, and when you squat down, you can only get half the way down before you feel like your knees cave in or your back starts to round or something starts to hurt, then you've just exposed some lack of flexibility somewhere, which then gives you the opportunity to work on that, come back to this and see if anything has actually changed. And I go through this a lot with my patients clinically, and I sort of speak about it a little bit on this channel. But from what I find, the optimal squat technique is one where you have your feet straight, about shoulder width apart. You want to feel like you have equal weight on your heels and through the balls of your feet. From this position, we want you to feel like you can screw your knees outwards without letting your big toes come off the ground. And the reason why this is potentially really important is that with your feet straight, big toes on the ground, creating that external rotation activates the hip external rotators to create some stability through your legs from above. But what you might also see is your foot straight, creating that external rotation, it will also pull your arch up into a more stable shape. And again, the reason why this is important is that with your feet straight, big toes on the ground, create that external rotation. As you come down, if you have normal hip flexibility and ankle mobility, you should be able to get to the bottom position of that squat without feeling like your feet want to turn out or feeling like your heels want to lift up. Having said that, if you are someone who has the perfect technique and you can only get halfway down before you feel like your back has to start to round, or you feel like you want to start moving backwards, then again, you may have just exposed some hidden restrictions at your ankle or through your hips. But from a performance optimization perspective, you may not necessarily have to get all the way down into the bottom position of a squat to run a marathon or kick a soccer ball. But if you can't express that full function in the form of a deep squat with good technique, then it's clear that you are missing something somewhere that might be robbing you of performance or setting you up to fail in terms of ankle, hip, knee, or lower back pain. If you feel like you are one of those people that when you squat down, you do feel like you either want to fall backwards or your heels come up or your knees cave in or your feet turn out before you even get to the bottom, then one way that you can do this exercise is by lifting your heels up off the ground. This just changes the mechanics of your body to allow you to get a little bit deeper with better technique, still practice and facilitate the ideal technique, the ideal expression of your leg mechanics in a squat, but it might allow you to get a little bit more work done and build that strength and capacity through your hips and through your legs while your mobility is improving in the background. Ideally, we want you to be able to get rid of that heel raise and get down to this position eventually, but we also need to respect where you feel you might be entering this conversation, which doesn't have to be perfect. And following on from this, if you feel like a regular squat isn't necessarily taxing enough, we can optimize this exercise further by getting a booty band, putting that above your knees, and then doing the same thing. When you rotate those knees out, you should feel like you can start to engage with the tension in the band a little bit more. We still want you to drop down as deep as you feel you can, trying to generate as much fatigue through your hips and knees as possible. Try and get to the full depth if you feel that that is available to you. Now, obviously there are a million different ways and a million different exercises that you can do that are variations to squats, lunges, step ups, squatting with weight on your back, much like the couch stretch, but there are a ton of different ways you can stretch the front of your hip and thigh. The couch stretch and your basic squats with a band are a very simple and practical way to capture as many dysfunctions as possible in a short space of time. Which brings us to the next exercise, which is another convenient way to optimize the health and function of your trunk, potentially also raising the function of everything that relies on that part of your trunk. And so the third exercise that I think everybody should be doing is the basic plank or a variation of the basic plank. The reason why a plank exercise is just so important to include in your day-to-day routine is that it asks your back to maintain a straight, strong, neutral position despite the forces of gravity acting upon it. Basic plank exercises are simple but hugely important to the function of the rest of your body as well. This idea of core strength is again very simple, but your body's ability to maintain a strong, stable platform for your arms and legs to function off of is critical for anyone who values performance. If you're someone who has peripheral pain and dysfunction, whether it's a hip issue, a knee issue, the stronger you can make your trunk, the more stable and optimal that platform is for those tissues to get permission to function optimally as well. And while a basic plank, which is essentially just trying to have your toes on the ground, elbows, stretch yourself out as far as you feel comfortable, squeeze your butt cheeks, draw your belly in, and you want to stay here for 30 seconds, a minute, minute and a half, 2 minutes, whatever you feel you can do. If this looks too daunting, there is absolutely nothing wrong with starting on your knees. If this is too daunting, whether your knees are uncomfortable in this position, you can do the exact same exercise on an incline off a bed or a table or a bench top. The principles here are exactly the same, whether you're in this position, or in an incline. We just want to make sure that you prioritize staying in a strong position. We don't want you to feel like you're sagging too much. We don't want you to lift your hips up to try and take the tension out of that system. We want your body to practice being straight, despite gravity wanting to subtly break you in two. If you first do this and you can only do it for 10 seconds before you gas out, perfect. If you can already do it for 3 minutes, even better. But what you should see as you progressively get stronger with this exercise is that your limit may have been 10 seconds, but in 2 or 3 days, you might find it becomes 45 seconds. And then the more that you continue to do this, the longer you should be able to maintain that shape without feeling like you want to give up. But ultimately, much like the squat exercises, we want to do enough of them so that you feel fatigued. If you do not generate that sense of fatigue, your brain will not have the stimulus required to come back better the next day to be better at that same exercise. But again, for me, clinically as a physiotherapist, not only is trunk muscle strength highly important to try and improve and resolve lower back dysfunction, but optimizing that core central function of your body has an upregulatory effect on basically everything else that relies on that as well. And if you feel like a basic plank becomes too easy, or if you're getting up to 2 or 3 minutes and you're thinking, geez, this is taking too long to get that fatigue, then a really simple way that you can scale this up a little bit more is doing what we call a rollout. Now I'm going to use the ab wheel, but you are more than welcome to use a Fitball or something else just to bridge the gap. But essentially the same rules apply, where we still want you to maintain a really strong, integrated and straight back, core muscles drawn in, squeeze your butt cheeks, and we're essentially rolling out as far as you feel comfortable. If you can get all the way to the bottom and then come back up again without feeling like you're sagging or you're losing that position, 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 5 or 6. It doesn't necessarily matter how many you do. Again, as long as you feel that tension and the fatigue build up, we're going to prioritize the technique over the number, but we still want to end up fatiguing you at the same time. And if you can pair up some core muscle strength with some lower leg strength and function with your squats, and improved mobility through your hips and legs with the couch stretch, then those 3 exercises should very quickly help improve the function of your body. But if you are dealing with any associated aches, pains, or injuries, then make sure that you feel competent at the very least at those 3 exercises. Now, obviously it goes without saying, there are a million different exercises that we could all be doing that we would all benefit from. I chose these 3 because these 3 legitimately are the ones that are probably give out the most to my patients based off of the dysfunction that I see in front of me at the time. As always, I genuinely hope that was helpful. If it was, please let me know by leaving a like on the channel. Subscribe if you want more content like this. But as always, thanks for watching. I hope to see you next time.